Once again to our video that we are bringing to you uh, today. We'll be looking at FetchXML and how we use that in 365 Power Automate flows. Uh, this is going to be interesting. It promises to be another wonderful one. And without wasting much time, let's get into this and see. So you can see from the screen here, this is a dynamic CRM. Basically, we've got a table here that says the patients. So this just shows the list of patient records, and with each patient's record, you could, for example, I would open this record that I've created for myself. You could see it has a relationship to the medication. So each patient has a related medication, for that patient. And we want to see how we can use Fetch XML to retrieve the list of records, associated to that, to the primary record or the patient record in this case. So, you could use the list row to get that record, the record values. But with Fetch XML, it just gives you a little bit of advanced a little bit way of tweaking that to get the list of you know uh, record associated to the primary record. And with FetchXML you can do much more. Gives you lots of flexibility to achieve that, what OData will not allow you to do. So um, yeah, let's start building the flow. So I've got my flow being created here. So basically what I'm just saying here is when the record is modified, when the patient record is modified, that will be my trigger basically. So if any of this record is modified, so I can open the patient record here, um, so we can see this. So basically the trigger will be when the patient record is modified. So once that is done, what we want to do, we want to get a row by ID. It's a little bit slow today, but yeah, it should work for us. So we want to get the row by ID. What rule are we trying to get? The patient record information. And what do we want to pass? We want to pass the unique ID of the patient record, basically. So we want to pass that value because we're trying to get that rule using the ID. So basically, when this record is modified, we want to get this record. That is just what it is saying. We can do a lot of things, add features and things like that, but that's not what we are looking at here. We just want to see how we can use FetchXML to get a list of all the related records to, the primary record. So now that we have gotten the ID here, the next thing we want to do, we want to get all the associated medications to this primary record. So you can see we've got 3 medications here to that primary record. So I could just open this and update the columns because I would want to get those columns as well. So probably just put the 25 pounds in there. So we've got that updated here. So now let's list rows. So we want to list the rows. Now this is where we want to list the medication table from that, and we want to so listing this. We want to use fetch XML. So that's what we want to use to get those information. And how do we get the fetch XML? So you could look at this. We could just use advanced find, a beautiful way of doing this. Could just use advanced find. We are basically trying to generate the fetches as an XML that we are going to be using inside the Power Automate flow. So it is that fetch XML will now link it to the primary the patient record itself. So it has come up. So now just needs medications. So we need medications where the patient is equal to, let's just put that value there. So price. So remember we're just using these to generate what we want. So we could just add columns to the view itself. In this case, probably want to add cost, so we could just, yeah, that's fine. Cost is fine. So we just add the cost. Basically, we've gotten that, then we just download our fetch. So we have downloaded our fetch. I'm just going to open that. Okay, so downloaded our fetch. I've opened it, I've copied the fetch. So minimize this and go back to the Power Automate flow, basically. Uh, just go back one step here. So now we just paste the fetch XML down with all this part. And yeah, so we can then play with this. To be fair, we don't need this part, so just take that out. You can do whatever you like with this. Descending, basically this is how we are formatting this. You can just call that true. So basically we want it to retrieve the values in descending order. Then you can do away with this. You don't need that. So now what we do, we pass the dynamic content, we pass the ID of the get role. So and just type it here. If yeah, to pass that value. So this is how we dynamically pass that information so that it retrieves this. And then yeah, we can test it. Let's save and test and see what it returns to us. So what we are expecting to see is that for this record, once we modify this, we want to retrieve these three values basically. So we could test this. The flow is disabled, try to, okay, that's fine. So we're just going to enable the flow. So I'm just going to try and enable the flow. Okay, so I've enabled that flow. I'm gonna take this, go back in there. Okay, good. So what are we going to do here? So we wanted to test this, right? We can test this manually. So remember, so it's asking us to perform the action um, that will trigger this. So remember, our trigger is to update the record itself. So we could just change this to data. That's basically updating the name, and then we save that record. So once that is saved, we want to see our flow run. So the flow has run successfully. You can see here it's getting the ID, the that. It is listing the rows. You can see it listing it here. So basically, you may not be able to see the details here, but you can see that returns successfully. So to be able to see the details, let's just add something here. Probably add a list apply to each. Let's do an apply to each here. So for each value, of the list row, we want to add a compose. And in the compose, we want to pass the value of the list row, to be fair. So yeah, so we can get the name. So we can do that. So we need a name. We can just add another one just to separate it so we can see it properly. We want to pass the cost. Remember the reason why I updated the cost. So now that we have these two things, I could just rename these account medication name, uh, cost of medication. So we can test that again manually. So this time we will be able to see the details of the records that are returned to us. Okay, so it has triggered. So let's just do this one more time. I call that saving. Yeah, that's right. Save the record because we are triggering on update of the record. So it has fired, has run successfully. So you can see here, okay, so it has closed out. But if you go to the apply to each, with the apply to each, you could see all the details in here in details. So you can see you got the first record and the name is vitamin, and you could, yeah, you can see the input, the cost of the medication not coming up. So let's just go to the next one. So the reason why it's not bringing out the cost, so we have to still go in there and correct that. Uh, in our fetch, you can see here we are not retrieving the cost, so you could just pull that in here and just retrieve the cost from here. So that's why. So we'll just test and run that again. Because you need to declare the field or the columns that you want to really target, right? Or the fetch FML that you are going to be using in the list room. So because that is what's going to retrieve those columns before you start doing your manipulations or your computation to get those values in. So now that we have that, just go back one more time and then probably third time is a charm. So let's see what happens this time around. Okay, so it has run successfully. You go to the apply to each and you open up this. You can see here, it picked the first record vitamin and it has picked the cost as 45. So if we go in there and go to medication, you can see vitamin and you can see 45. Remember, we are picking this um, using the fetch XML. Remember, we said descending through. So it is picking from the bottom, the last record. So if I just pull this out as the oldest, so this will be the first record that will be returned, followed by this cough syrup. Yeah, so let's see if that is true. So yeah, it just reminds this. Yeah, so you have to use the created on. So basically, we can do that and then use the created on to manipulate this. But yeah, it returned all of these, and you can see the third record here, cough syrup, and you can see the outcome here. So basically, this is how to use fetch XML to return value and then dynamically pass the ID of the primary record, as GUID into the record that we need. So basically, we're passing that GUID